Well, so this is my next one. So I wake up from a dream, and like all my dreams, it's another strong, powerful dream, and I'm in nature with a group of people, and I'm in what is the kitchen area, and I'm helping to organise the kitchen, clear old stuff away that isn't needed anymore. The constant theme in all my dreams, I'm clearing up the crap again. That's what I do. Get the cardboard to be burnt, get the perishables to go in the compost, the usual stuff. And I'm working on a service to the people in the kitchen because they're in charge, I'm not. And I wake up with that dream, and a little while later, I come back to bed after having been to the toilet, and that's it. I'm suddenly talking to my partner about one of the really big parts of my life. So I was one of the core group in an organisation that runs camps in the UK. Special kind of camps, actually. I won't go into the details, I want to keep this as impersonal as possible. And yet what I've got to talk about is actually very personal. So here we go. I'm going to follow my formula, but before I do, I need to give you some indication of why I've got so much emotional charge. So here we are, we're in this special time astrologically in July 2019, the beginning thereof. Sun in Cancer, the moon's been in Cancer very recently, lots going on, very strong time. Moon's north nodes, loads of it. So what I realise is I'm still carrying a lot of feelings because I was expelled from this organisation after volunteering, so volunteer working for up to 2 months every summer for no money. My contribution greatly valued and greatly liked by many people in the organisation. I was expelled. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this, but I want to also use my formula. I'm going to remind myself and use my formula. So the formula is this: I begin with I'm sorry for, and if I know why, give brief details. Then since you left my life, I feel. And the next step is I regret the times when miscommunication happened. And the next one is when I look back, I remember. Thank you for, and I love that we. So that's my formula, and I'm doing my best to work with that. I'm very emotionally charged about this, and I know this is one that's going to get shared, so that's even more pressure on me. It's the only one that probably will do. So it was a very unusual organisation to be part of because everyone's working for free, and we're giving up considerable parts of our year, up to 2.5 months each year. I did this for 17 years. There was 1 year I was so ill, all I was able to do is to pop in for a couple of hours. That was when I had the ME really badly, but the rest of the time I was there. And I can't tell you what I did because then that makes it more obvious. I'm doing my best to make this as anonymous as possible, and you'll see why as it goes on. So within any organisation or group of people, there are always going to be issues and differences of opinion and miscommunication, and as all those take place, you will also find some kind of power struggles. It so happened that the leader of this group would take against one of the members of the group, and when that happened, there was a very specific formula that was followed. I need to keep this water with me. This is actually quite something for me to do this film. This is the way it used to work. First of all, the one in charge would find one member of the group somehow annoying or irritating, bothersome. And those feelings presumably would grow, and then the person would take against that person and realise if only they could get rid of that person, if they could only expel them from the group, then everything would be all hunky-dory and it would all be fine. Now I must make it clear that the person who was targeted was not someone that was causing problems generally. No, this was someone that caused problems to the one in charge. And so what happened is, and it's a very common thing, we've heard about it in all different situations, what would happen is that the one in charge would then wage a campaign against the targeted individual. And this would take place over time. This wouldn't just happen over a day or so. There would be time, maybe weeks, maybe longer, maybe even more than a season, maybe even more than a year, but the campaign would be waged. And what would happen is that the one in charge would talk quietly to other individuals in the organisation and gradually gain support. And like all those in charge, they would use their skills, their intelligence, their ability to persuade, their ability which they actually use to create the organisation. They would use those same skills to persuade and convince, first of all, just a small number of others, and if they were really erudite and really skillful, they would do their best to persuade more people. And this would continue until the one that was doing all this persuasion had the idea that they had enough support. Now I watch a lot of historical TV in Korea, and about Korea on Netflix I see exactly the same thing played out. And I see how this is done in politics, in the nobility. It's all historical, so it wasn't called Korea, it's called Joseon. I see exactly the same thing being conducted, and it's using the same ability. It's being irritated, getting pissed off, waging some kind of a campaign. In Joseon it would often include executions, beheadings and the like. Well, this is the UK in modern times, and none of that's happening. But let's kind of get to it. When the critical point had been reached that the one in charge had enough support, then what would happen is there would be a big drama will be played out, and there'd be accusations, and it'll be very personal, and it would be like a kind of a kangaroo court. A kangaroo court is like an unofficial court, a court with no authority, no standing, no organisation, and it would just erupt. It might happen in a meeting, it might happen completely spontaneously, and harsh words would be said, and the person that would be accused sometimes would have an awareness that there'd been some trouble stirred up against them. Other times they would have absolutely no idea, and it'd be a dreadful shock. But this would go on, and sometimes one big drama session would be enough to finish it, and other times there might be more than one required. But what fascinated me and severely disturbed me at the time, because I actually witnessed this happen not once, but time after time. And I was too ignorant to understand what was going on. I had not done any training as a practitioner. I didn't understand people well enough to know what was happening. I just know that I was very, very upset. And I was not the only one, because I was one of the people that never agreed with this. So there'd be a number of people that'd be persuaded into the views of the one in charge, and then with the masses, the rest of us, we were not persuaded. But the whole thing was done with such force and such power that it caused the rest of us, I'll call this the silent majority. The silent majority, we would not speak up in defence of the one accused, or if we did, and there were times that I did speak up in defence of the one accused, we didn't have enough personal power to carry the day. I can remember speaking up on a number of occasions when this happened, My voice wasn't strong enough. I didn't have the erudition, I didn't have the powerful intellect to argue my case. And of course, I was on the I was wrong-footed like anyone else that tried to speak up, because it all came to us as a sudden shock when the drama was created, and we were taken by surprise. And what happened in each case, the one in authority with the backing of the few was sufficient to cause the expulsion of that individual. So this is a long one, but I need to go into it because it's a very important thing for people to be aware of. So eventually it was my turn, and again I can't describe what happened, but exactly the same process arose, that the one in charge was having grievances against myself. There'll be a number of grievances, actually, I'm aware of them. Again, I won't say what they are. It doesn't matter about the detail. The important thing is that a number of grievances occur between me and that person, and then the same method was used, going to have a private chat to individuals. In other words, indulging in poisonous, malicious gossip until sufficient people are persuaded and an event was selected as an opportunity. And then the same thing. And in that one, there was only a small number of witnesses. It's an event I won't ever forget. And that's to give you the shamanic take on all this, because this might happen to you. Anyone who's ever been in a job, this is much more likely to happen in paid employment. There's someone I've done work for in the past shamanically, and this happened to her a number of times. She kept on losing a job, and it was because she was targeted by the employer or the line manager or whoever in the employment, in the place of work. And the same thing was done. So again, with the talking behind the person's back, getting some support, and then the big drama, and then expulsion. So this is something that happens a lot in human life. So this is a pattern, this is what's happening. So what I want to do now is let's take it to the next level. I'm going to go through the process now. So speaking to this person, because that was done to me and I became expelled from the group as a result of the same process. So I'm speaking to you now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the choices that I made, the actions that I took, because there were things that I did that hurt you. And I can see that now. And I'm sorry that for all these years I couldn't see it. All I could do is I could see that I was one of a series of people that was manipulated out of the group. But I can now see that I made mistakes in my dealings with the group and with you, and it was these mistakes that caused my expulsion. And I'm sorry for making those mistakes. I'm sorry for hurting you. I must have hurt you a lot, that you went to such elaborate lengths to expel me from the group. And what I want to do now is tell you how I feel, because this is a new bit, because really a lot of what this process is ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, but this is the extra stage, this is the missing bit that's so important as far as I'm concerned, because this is how I feel. So what I realised as I went into my reminiscences about the past this morning, I realise I feel a lot of feelings about this. I feel unjustly expelled. I feel wrongly accused. I feel disappointment. I feel grief. I feel the loss. Because although I did this for 17, I don't know, a lot of years, I did this for many years, more than 10 years, can't remember how many years actually, but for more than 10 years, This is what I did. And I did it as a volunteer. I worked for free because I loved this work. I loved to be with these people. It was a fantastic community. And when I experienced the treatment which resulted in my expulsion, I was gutted. I was dismayed. I was distraught. I was massively upset. And frankly, it was as if I'd lost a limb, or as if I had suddenly broken up with my partner and suddenly found myself without my relationship. Because it was a part-time relationship and it lasted definitely more than 10 years. It's a long time. So this was all massively upsetting for me. And indeed, I did experience physical illness as a result. So this affected me on a lot of levels, and I lost friends, I lost friendships. It was a really big deal. And it was a major part of my life's journey. And along with all that, I also knew, because I was a shamanic practitioner by this point, I got to get back into shamanism, I got to get back into that bit and a bit. But it was such a big deal. I learned so many valuable skills in that time. So let's link back to the shamanic thing. So let's go back to the night when this conversation happened. And I was in the conversation which resulted in my expulsion. I was a practitioner. And I'm going to give you actually the reason I dare to do this, come hell or high water. The reason is that the organisation was very clear. It was not a therapy group. We were there to work with people, but we were not there to do any therapy. But what happened that year, because I'd done my shamanic training and I was qualified and I was skilled and I was a practitioner, and I could see people were struggling, and I started to offer my help, and people said yes. In fact, it ended up that the vast majority of the people had my healing help and my shamanic work, and it was doing good work, and that was deeply distressing to the one in charge. That was very, very disturbing. And so that's really why I got kicked out. But in the act of what was happening, the people that were speaking against me, accusing me, and they didn't accuse me of what it was that was bothering me, which is I was helping other people. That was not the accusation. The accusation was completely different things, which I need to keep totally anonymous. So they were laying out their accusations, making their points, and I can now see with hindsight they are really valid points, because we all make choices in life, and that's why I said I'm sorry for mistakes I made. I made mistakes, so they were calling me on my mistakes quite correctly in that sense, but that was not the reason. So what I did is I became very heightened awareness, and the guides and helpers were helping me, obviously. This is before the helpers were working with me really actively. That all happened later. But what they did is they made it clear that when I was being shouted at, which is what happened, and this went on for a long time, and there were other people there, but it was primarily two people who were taking turns to shout at me, and sometimes they were both doing it. What I did is I was extremely careful about my posture. So for example, imagine the person who was shouting at me was where the camera is now. I would not be in this alignment. I would take this position of alignment, so that when the negative energy was directed at me, it would be reflected away from me, rather like a mirror. If you could imagine the sunlight hitting a mirror, it'd be reflected away. And the other thing I did is I moved. So I'd be moving, and I would not present this head-on target. Extremely important, that. So moving, a moving target, and also constantly taking on a position whereby I would not be getting the direct impact of the negative force, which was very, very hostile and malevolent. So I managed to protect myself considerably from that, and that notwithstanding, I was still pretty wiped out afterwards. And of course, I made very good use of drinking very good quality spring water to cleanse myself, and I worked with the wonderful magic plants that provide me with such assistance in life when it's very difficult. And I was instructed to leave the following day, which meant a lot of work to make that happen. A huge amount of work, actually. And I was obviously ill, had a recurrence of my ME symptoms, but I did it. I did exactly what was requested of me, and I got out. And that's something I'll never forget, which is why I'm talking about it. So that's actually what happened. So now I want to go into this next bit. So I've spoken about how I felt and how I still feel. So I feel I lost so many people. And I feel also, this is a really big thing I've not been able to say, not even be able to think. I feel still a lot of upset and a lot of distress because I didn't have the opportunity to complete with people in the way I would have liked to have done. I didn't have the opportunity to tell them how wonderful I thought they all were and still do, and what incredibly good work that we all do, all unpaid. I never had the chance to say, stand up on a stage or just give my gratitude like you might do if you were to say you win a job and you leave the job. You have the chance to do that, don't you? There's a big celebration party, whatever. No opportunity to do that, and that really was very, very hurtful and distressing too. So now I want to move to stage 3, which is I regret the times when miscommunication happened. Again, I can't go into the details of the specific events, that makes it too obvious. But there were a number of times when miscommunication happened between me and the one in charge, and between me and other people too. And I regret all of those miscommunications. Some of the time it definitely was my fault. Some of the time I wouldn't explain things properly or sufficiently. I would just go off and do my thing, and then that would cause other people problems. So I regret about all the miscommunications that took place that were my responsibility, and those definitely would have been used against me in terms of providing ammunition for the big drama which caused me to be expelled, asked to leave. So I really own up to that as well, because I do make a lot of mistakes in my life. I reckon everyone does. And then we have the next one. So when I look back, I remember so many good times. I had some of the most powerfully profound, deep. I would actually say that it was being with those people for more than 10 years that taught me how to develop really solid, intimate relationships with other people that were not based on sex or need or any of those things, but were based on just getting on together and having a great time. And I learnt the power of enjoying human relationships through work. And it was somehow more pure than in a job, because in a job you've always got the thing about the money. Well, at least I'm going to get a wage or a salary or something. With this, there was nothing. It was pure work to benefit and help other people for no financial reward. And that's become very rare in 2019 in the parts of the world where I live. And it's great to know that people are still out there volunteering. I was at an event recently. I was at it was a small festival, and someone had a t-shirt on that said volunteer. God bless all the volunteers in this world, people who don't get paid for what they do. It's fantastic. So I learnt how to relate with intimacy. I learnt how to love people without being in a physical sexual relationship with them. I learnt deep love and abiding trust. I learned how to trust people, and I learned how to play and to enjoy being with people in a way that is so deeply nourishing on all levels, including spiritually. So isn't it ironic? So here's the thing, let's get the shamanic perspective again. Because of course, with hindsight I can see that I provided something extremely valuable in that organisation, and for pretty much all the time I was there, except perhaps the last year or two, I provided something that was unique my contribution was not providable by anybody else. It was only me that was doing that. And to very crudely simplify, I would say it was a spiritual component for that group. By the time that the event happened and the drama and the expulsion, there were others that were willing, ready and able to take on that role, and I was not needed to do that anymore, which means it was my time to move on anyway. And so of course that's what happened. I then let go of that, and that door closed, and within 12 months of that door closing, a new door opened, which ended up me offering retreats, working with people with plant medicines, which is a very different situation. And then I had the role of being the retreat host, which is the leader for 10 years, which is something else, but that's not part of this film, obviously. But I accept that all I went through with the group actually gave me the tools to work with people as I've been able to do so powerfully. And that is now finished. I've let go of that one too. Don't work that way anymore with people, which means yet again another door is closed. So this is what I've learned in my life. When a door closes, another door opens. So the fifth stage, I'm actually doing it, hadn't realised. So thank you to all the people in that group for giving me the tools and the skills to be able to take on my next mission, which was retreats in the way I was doing them. And I love you all, and I do mean all, every last one of you. Those that are still in the organisation, those that left before me, that got expelled before me, those that left after me, got expelled after me, I love you all. So thank you very much for being the witness to this aspect of my life, and great love to you all.